Fallout 76 is a game that hardly needs an introduction. After its extremely controversial 2018 release, it became one of the most memeable AAA game releases in recent memory. But has 76 been able to turn itself around after 2 years of updates, patches, and DLC, making it worth the purchase now in 2020? Stick around here and find out. What's going on, Couch Fam? It's your boy Ray here to talk to you about none other than the infamous Fallout 76. Look, I'm gonna be really honest here. I am a huge, and I mean huge, Fallout fan. I have childhood memories watching my dad play Fallout 1 and 2, and eventually him allowing me to play myself when I got old enough. It's been a huge part of my upbringing and a big part of my gaming library, so I feel like I should disclaim that there. Like, I've played each entry into the dirt and even read and pray to the Fallout Bible nightly. Chris Avalon, forgive us our sins. Amen. But seriously, I eat, breathe, and sleep Fallout at this point. I'm not even a fan as much as I have an unhealthy obsession with the franchise. So it may be to your surprise when I say I absolutely hated 76 at launch. Shit, not even at launch. I've been with the game since the Break It Early test application, or the beta. And from 5 minutes into the beta, I knew that I was going to be disappointed with the game release. But look, that was 2018. That was literally years ago. And even though 76 has had a myriad of controversies since then, I'm willing to look past it all and give this game a fair shake. And I know some of you may not be willing to give the game a second chance because of principles and all that. And look, I completely understand that. I too think that games should release finished and polished. And if you feel burned and not willing to forgive, I won't fault you. But for those of you who are willing to forgive 76, or not even forgive, but give it a second take, let me tell you something. Here's what's new. Alright, so let's just smack some of the big issues in the mouth from the jump. Fallout 76 at launch was initially plagued by two monsters, one being stability, which we'll talk about later in the video, so please stick around until then, and the other being lack of shit to make you care. By that I mean rememberable NPCs, quests, tasks, events, etc. The original launch of the title saw players walking into a wasteland. And no, I don't mean like the usual Fallout wasteland. I mean a human NPC-less wasteland with no settlements, no quirky people, and nothing but the ruins of pre- and post-war civilization. The original story of 76 is told secondhand. You go here, find one of several dead bodies, listen to this holotape, read that note, finish their work in a checklist of uninspired quests. It was all more or less terrible. The original game made it feel like there was an epic party where all these Fallout badasses like the Brotherhood of Steel, Enclave, and some dope new factions like the Mistresses of Mystery and Responders all showed up to have like the most amazing Fallout party ever, but your character shows up like hours after it happened, and now the closest you can get to the actual fun of the party is talking to the Roomba, cleaning up the mess, or looking on people's Instagram stories to see how they enjoyed the party themselves. Well, I have good news for you. After April 14th, 2020, Bethesda released the much anticipated Wastelanders DLC for 76, bringing in actual human NPCs, settlements, a new story, quests, and much, much more. Honestly, after the release, the game had so much new life placed into it that I can't believe I even paid attention to the original version. What once used to be you walking down a boring wasteland with nothing to do or see is now, well, a lively, thriving wasteland that is what you would expect from a Fallout game. Traveling between destinations can see the player walking into a plethora of random encounter scenarios, which can be as simple as random raider attacks or sometimes really engaging ones. I once had an NPC need help with fixing her robot companion, and there were several ways I could have went about completing that encounter, from fixing it if I had a high enough intelligence count, to straight up murdering her and her little robot. I admit to nothing. All I'm saying is I notice myself fast traveling way less these days, and that's because I actively look forward to what random encounters might bring me. The story of Wastelanders is also really engaging. Well, engaging enough. It definitely features an entourage of memorable characters and some fun quests too. I mean, it's not New Vegas, but I definitely enjoyed it enough to come back and make a second character to side with the settlers. No, Wastelanders doesn't remove the original story. In fact, newer players will be forced to interact with the old story in some of its quests sooner or later. Bethesda did try to spruce it up a bit by adding some NPCs to talk to in the graveyard that is the original story, but it pales in comparison to the Wastelanders update that I can definitely see people being a little annoyed that they have to interact with it. But I do have to talk about a few of my gripes with the Wastelanders story. There's really lack of consequences. Okay, let me clarify. Certain areas are instanced, so some of your decisions do change the outcome of factions, with some decisions you do leading to the death of major named NPCs. That's big, and I don't want that to be lost. However, Wastelanders introduces two new big factions, the Settlers and the Raiders, and even brings back a reputation system, but it's woefully underwhelming. Doing missions for one side doesn't affect the reputation of the other. You can straight murk an entire settlement with your raider pals, but still be welcomed among the raider-hating settlers of Foundation. Like, what? I just kind of felt like it was a missed opportunity to make your final decisions on who you side with to have a more weighty outcome. More or less, the group you side with just gets a bigger boost to the reputation bar, and oh my fucking god, we need to talk about the reputation system, or more so the grindiness in general. To boost your reputation with both factions is easy as hell. At first, all players have to do is complete quests for NPCs and they'll rake in the good faction rep. At first. But after you finish the main story of Wastelanders, the only way to boost your faction rep is by doing daily quests, which, if you couldn't tell by the name, can only be completed daily. That means you only have a handful of options to boost your rep with in-game factions and are limited to doing it once a day. The reason you'll want to get max rep is so that you can gain access to better gear that factions offer, and they offer better gear as your rep goes up. And a lot of that new shiny gear is too nice to just ignore. But it gets worse. Fallout 76 has an in-game issue, but now it's no longer a lack of content, it's an overabundance of grindy in-game options. Wastelander introduced a new currency called Gold Bullion, which you'll need to purchase those new weapons that you'll have to spend months grinding just to get the option to purchase them. But players are limited to only receiving a max of 200 gold bullion a day. Bruh, some of the gear you just grinded to get is worth thousands of bullion. So after grinding your ass off to even have the option to purchase the gear, you'll now need to work your ass off to get the gold to purchase the gear. My best advice is to collect treasury notes, the things you use to purchase gold bullion from. Normally you get them from completing events and quests as you go along, and try to get your bullion count going up while you grind reputation. But wait, there's more. Fallout 76's in-game is all about the legendaries, and all the new gear you get from the factions will be legendaries. But the only way to purchase materials to make legendaries is with another in-game currency called legendary script. And guess the fuck what? You can only get 150 of legendary script a day, and because legendary effects are all random, you'll be needing to purchase a lot of script to pay off RNGesus to give you the item you really want. Where Wastelanders hooks you and makes you want to spend your time in the game, the grinding definitely makes you want to stop. 76 feels like a mobile game with the artificial blocks in progress. Look, I'm not against making players grind to get something, just don't limit them to how much they can grind in a day. I work 60-hour weeks on top of other hobbies. I and many others don't have the time to log into 76 every day, and it feels almost like a punishment because I don't have that time. That, or that 76 wants to be a full-time job, which, fuck that. Now remember what I said was Fallout 76's other big monster? Well, it's time to start talking about bugs, and I don't mean rad roaches. Let me be the first to tell you that Fallout 76 is far from bug-free. You'll still run into clipping issues, floating objects, and a myriad of other small bugs. But I'm happy to admit that most of them aren't exactly game-breaking, but I do need to let you know what you're walking into. You'll be exploring the wastes, collecting scrap to build out your camp, fighting mutants and raiders, then boom, floating mole rats, or an enemy T-posing, etc, etc. It's because that 76 can be so immersive when you're playing it that the bugs, even the small ones, can be absolutely jarring. However, the game crashes far less than it did in the past, but you'll still run across crashing every now and then, and that can be pretty frustrating. 76 is a games as a service title. And as you can tell from how I said that, I really hate games as a service. But we're not talking about that because I can make a whole nother video, and this video is going long enough as it is. But being games as a service means that it'll always be under some sort of construction. So everything I just told you about the bugs is liable to change. And dude, do I mean liable to change. See, the Bethesda studio in charge of overseeing 76 isn't the same team that made Skyrim or Fallout 3 and 4. This is Bethesda's C team. No, not even their C team. It's like their Z team. And to be totally fair, 76 is like the studio's first game, and for their lack of experience, they are doing a pretty decent job. But decent isn't good enough when people are paying money for the product. Like, the stability of 76 honestly depends on the patch that you're playing. Sometimes, everything is what seems to be bug-free. There are hardly, if any, crashes, and there's peace in the kingdom. Then they'll release a new patch that breaks everything they just fixed, or it'll introduce new bugs that'll break the game completely in new ways. And it's not like these bugs always get cleaned up right away. Sometimes they take weeks or even months to fix. There was just a huge controversy in the community where Bethesda finally rebalanced some broken weapons, but because they had been part of the community for the better part of a year, people just came to accept them as such. Part of the game. So when Bethesda finally fixed it, which it was a good fix if you ask me, they faced well-deserved backlash, if you ask me. I'm not trying to put down the devs because I know they work hard here and were given a task that should have been impossible, i.e. making Fallout 76 fun and playable. But they've stuck with it through controversy after controversy and more or less kept the game alive. All I am really trying to do here is warn you of their inexperience, and that if you do sign on to 76, you'll be signing on to some growing pains as well. But my favorite part of 76 is something that I was so sure was going to be my least favorite part. It's always online. It's a game as a service title after all. When Todd first came out on stage at E3 2018 and told the world that 76 was going to be online only, my heart sank. Fallout is a single player game. It's always been and always should be, is what I thought. But after crawling out of the vault day one of the beta, I found myself experiencing a new wasteland with other people, in real time. And words can't really express how special that felt. From my first day out of the vault, complaining about the bugs with other players while we laughed and got murked by super mutants at Huntersville, to making excited speculations about what the sheepscotch would be, participating in holiday events like Foshnot and Meat Week, and the list just goes on. I've really gotten to experience this game with other people, and that's just been awesome. I've played many other online games before, but the 76 community is something special for sure. While in other online survival games, you'll find griefers. In 76, you'll find higher level players going out of their way to help lower level players. Once I had stopped at another player's camp, and I overheard the camp owner talking to a group of lower level players who were asking for directions. The higher level player gave them some pinpoint directions and even dropped some food and water for them. He even offered to escort them if things got too hard because he knew that their journey would take them through Harper's Ferry, a place that's normally patrolled by super mutants or sometimes higher level scorched for those non-76 players. This moment was especially cool for me for two reasons. Players helping players like this is normally rare, but in 76 it's not rare at all. It's actually super common. Sometimes players will collect power armor frames, low-level weapons, and ammo and leave them at the door of 76 for new players. While in other games, you'll find higher level players bullying lower level players. It still happens in Fallout 76, but definitely not as much. You'll find higher levels guiding and aiding new players. The community is so friendly that I really don't have much to say aside that it truly is something special. The other reason I found it to be so cool is because Appalachia really does feel like a lived-in wasteland. Players giving other players directions as to where to go and what to expect is normally something that would be left up to NPCs, but you'll find no better tips than another player who's willing to lend you a hand. The wasteland of Appalachia feels lived in, and the players sometimes really feel like they've been living in it too. The players are the ones who know what places to avoid until you're ready, and the players know the better places to loot for supplies at. Players can even change the landscape of 76 with camps. Camps are more or less settlement mode from Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, but you can place them almost anywhere, and your only limits are that of your imagination and the actual build limit, but you can do a lot with it. There are players who have made some crazy creations through the camp system, and has become one of my favorite pastimes in this game to from player store to player store and check out their dope designs of their camps. Speaking of which, I've made several dope camps myself, and if any of you are down for it, I can totally make camp build videos if their interest is there. Player camps have done their part for players to add their own bit of personality to the wasteland, really making Appalachia feel like it's lived in by more than just the NPCs, making every new server a bit more fresh than the last. This is the first Fallout game that's brought multiplayer, and I may be a minority here, but like damn, I'm happy they did. At least for 76, I hope Fallout 5 is still single player. 76 features what is in my opinion the greatest map in any Fallout game that we've seen so far. 76 is huge, featuring 6 biomes: the forest, the ash heap, the poison valley, the great divide, the mire, and the cranberry bog. Each region feels completely unique and has a special feel to it. You'll never confuse one location for another, and rotating play from one area to another does keep the playthrough fresh. And after the release of the One Wasteland update, all enemies are now scaled to player level, so you can travel anywhere on the map and gain appropriate XP from kills and exploring. Though the areas that would have been higher level areas can still be difficult for newer players because the enemies there are still pretty specced out. The Atomic Shop. Fallout 76's monetization hasn't gotten much better. Almost all new armors and weapon skins go directly to the Atomic Shop, where you'll have to use real-world money to gain the in-game currency of atoms to actually pay for these things. I may be able to quietly forgive cosmetics, maybe, but the Atom Shop is becoming more and more egregious as time moves forward. 76's time-saving utility items may not be pay to win exactly, but they are Bethesda making players pay to fix a problem that Bethesda itself created, so I still find that kind of scummy. Not to mention the Fallout First membership. Fallout First is a monthly or yearly subscription that players can opt into for a tent, a scrap box, and exclusive armor, emotes, and skins. I know it doesn't sound like much, but I paid into it just to see what it was, and dude, first off, the tent can be dropped at any location like a camp, and even acts as a free fast travel point. But even still, that's just an annoying advantage, right? Well, the big kicker here is the scrap box. The scrap box allows for storage of unlimited junk. Junk is the random assortment of resources needed to do, well, everything in the game. You need junk to repair guns and armor, make guns and armor, build up your camp, etc. Before the scrap box, I found myself constantly juggling the weight of my stash box between items I needed like guns and ammo and food and water and aid with my junk. But with the scrap boxes, players can just completely ignore half of the game, holding on to as much junk as they want. This is as much of an advantage as it is a new key function to the game. Like, I don't even know if I'll be able to truly go back to non-first membership without being somewhat salty to knowing what I'm missing out on the other side. Monetization like this needs to be watched because companies will always, and I mean always, try to push the envelope as far as they can go if we let them. Fallout 76 had a rough launch, and even still it faces many challenges ahead. It has need of more balances and bug fixes, a really inexperienced team working on it, questionable monetization schemes, and still faces a beyond uphill fight for its inexcusable launch. However, I do find myself optimistic about the future of this game. I've sunk hundreds of hours into it and probably will continue to do so. Devs are steadily making rebalance changes and patching out bugs left and right, not to mention the Brotherhood of Steel update that's dropping this winter. If devs can stay on this track, I think 76 will have a future to look forward to. That being said, the game does need work, but I can definitely recommend it to people at a discount. The couch gives Fallout 76 3 out of 5 couch cushions. Definitely enough fun to be had here at a discount. Tons of hours of fun will be played by yourself or with friends, but there's still tons of work needed before this game can be considered good or even great. If you stuck with me this long, I just want to say thank you. If you found any of the info useful, please drop a like and consider joining us on the couch by hitting that subscribe button for more gaming reviews, guides, and let's plays. My name is Ray, and you've all been awesome. See you next time. I'm out.